Hello. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Oh, there we go. I'm a little messed up over here. Hello and happy Monday, everyone. Happy Monday. Let's see if we got something on the camera here. So there you go. You got me all perpuzzled, whatever the word is, over here, Derek. Yeah. let me get that mic on there. There you are, Derek. Say hello to the world.
Hello, world.
All right, let's start this show off right. Let's everyone just forget those last couple of seconds. I hear some music playing in the background. Here we go. So thank you so very much for listening. You're tuned in to 98.3 FM The Life. You're listening to Bacon Bits with Master Happiness. We come at you every single Monday night at 7 o'clock, sometimes about 7:05, like we did today. But we come at you every single Monday night to talk about your job, your career, your vision made clear, the skills that you hone for the business that you own, the ups and downs, the smiles and frowns, where you're at and where you're bound. If you miss any part of the episodes, you can always catch recordings of these episodes on Bacon Bits with Master Happiness anywhere you listen to podcasts. As I do every Monday, I'm on a quest to bring you some of the industry best, and I've got a returning guest, a good friend of mine, Derek Hartman, a wealth management guy. I don't know what the exact title is. You're going to tell me what that is, a wealth managing guy. I kind of like that.
That's a fun one. I do like that.
WMG, that's what you are. You got to get those initials, wealth management guy. So we're going to talk today about two things. First half an hour or so, we're going to talk a little bit about what the wealth management guys do. All right. And then we're going to talk a little bit about these tough conversations, because we're going to get into that. But then the last half an hour for sure, we're going to do that. Talk about how it is to handle tough conversations, why it's difficult to have tough conversations. And we're talking about the tough conversations, whether it's being with family. This could be our parents. It could be our spouses, our children, our friends and family, but also at work. It could be the people we work for, the people we work with, the people who work for us. We are faced with these tough conversations all the time. And it seems like when you're having those conversations with people you care about or you have a regular relationship, they become so much tougher. You know, Derek, I don't know about you, but doesn't it seem like we're either a whole lot braver to have those tough conversations with complete strangers?
We really are, because those strangers go away,
and
whether we're having with family or friends, they're just right there with us at all times.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
so it comes back.
Right, it's going to come back, and they're going to go, "What? By the way, remember what you said 20 years ago?" Yeah, exactly. Strangers and like, man, walk away, and that's the end of it. So, what I want to do is, Derek, and you know how we run this show because you've been on the show before. So I'm so glad
you came for having me back. I appreciate it.
Definitely. So what we do is we apply a little bacon to the episode.
Yes.
Because everything bacon touches just becomes a little bit better, right?
Or a lot better.
Or a lot better. There you go.
How you feel?
You know what I did the other day, not too long ago. You'll love this. Is you get back bacon. You can go to a place and they'll take the really thick back bacon. They'll cut bacon to the thickness that you want, right? So I told them cut it like half an inch or 3/4 of an inch thick and cut it into cubes. All right. And then I took thick cut bacon and wrapped bacon. So I had bacon wrapped bacon. Right?
Did you bake it?
No,
or you fried it?
Yeah, air fry. Yeah. So and then you add some flavor. So bacon wrapped bacon. I mean, it doesn't.
That sounds delicious. I would put some cheese in there, I think.
Oh, there you go. Something like that. Yeah. But just a way to make bacon a little bit more decadent, right?
My doctor probably loves hearing that. Yeah. That's great for my health.
Well, all right. So, but anyway, the bacon we're going to talk about today is not necessarily the bacon for chewing. Come on, do you remember? It's the
doing.
It's the bacon for doing. There you go. All right. So the BACON, the acronym we're going to be talking about, or to solve those problems, or how to have those tough conversations, is B is benevolence. All right. A is active listening. C is clarity. 4 is ownership of what we say. And then 5 is understanding the power of a neutral tone. All right, so we're going to get into that. But in this first half of the show, Derek, I want to learn a little bit more about you. So before we go too deep into what you do, I always like having you introduce yourself. Where do you work? Where like we can follow you on social media, etc. That type of thing. I want the people to get to know you before they have an opportunity to judge you. So let's maybe they'll love you up front.
That would be nice. That would be
exactly.
nice. I like to put that persona out there to be loved at first.
Yeah, there you go. So it's Derek Hartman.
Yes,
with a double N, right?
With 2 N's at the end. Yes. Some folks have trouble spelling the first and last names.
There you go.
Yeah, Derek Hartman with Fraser Wealth Management. I'm a certified financial planner. I have been in the industry since 2006,
Okay.
quite a long time. But I've been with Fraser since 2019, right before COVID happened. So been there a while. Things are going well. Things are very busy. So
Okay. Where do we follow you? Where do we
yes,
find
so
where do
you
we
can
find
find
you?
me. I have a Facebook business page out there. We've got FraserWealthManagement.com, so you can find us there. Find me on LinkedIn. Those are kind of my main areas where you can find
Okay.
me. Too much social media, I can't keep up with it all,
No kidding. No.
unfortunately.
I
So
did see you started doing a couple of little videos. I'm liking that because that's a tough thing to do.
it is tough. I'm working on it. I actually picked up some new lighting and things along
Good for you.
those lines. Trying to get good at it. Not really my thing, but I think it can be really helpful just because there's a lot of information, or should I say, misinformation out
Yep.
there. So if I can cover that, it's really helpful. I see a lot of stuff on videos from TikTok and news stories and things like that. So if I can get ahead of it, especially for my followers, I try to.
Perfect, perfect. And you know what? I'm going to give you a little heads up on this. The whole idea of the marketing yourself on the videos is no one is expecting you to be a Hollywood personality. They're going to listen to you because of the wealth of information you have. There you
Well,
go.
that's good because they're not getting the Hollywood. I'm much better at the radio than
Yeah,
I am videos.
there you go. And
in
you
front of the
look
camera.
fantastic on radio.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Thank you.
Right. But I'm going to encourage you to continue to do more of those videos because even if you just give these little tips, like you said, hey, I'm going to talk to you for 30 seconds, 60 seconds, whatever it is, and here's 3 takeaways, something like that, just so I go, okay, that's cool. I got that. I think that even if it doesn't lead to more business for you, I think it's really cool because it feeds people information they need to know.
Yeah, and I think that's really why I do it, is the education piece. Honestly, most business that I get does not come from Facebook
Oh, I'm sure it doesn't.
videos, things like that. Um, but that information is really powerful because I've had people reach out to me and ask me questions about it, or they've reached out to me even 9 months or a year later and say, "Hey, I remember seeing this video," and they'll ask me questions from there. But it's really, the more I can, more education I can bring to just the community in general. That's a win for me.
Yeah, yeah.
Just because, in general, finances are not a strong point for a large majority of the
I would say
community.
a great deal of
Yeah.
people, right? So let me ask you about that because I want to learn a little bit more about what you do,
Yeah.
and I want the listeners who are tuning into this to learn a little something. So if we were to break the group down into younger people, like in their 20s, finding independence, their first jobs, that type of stuff, then you got the middle age where they're building families, and then you've got older age.
Yep.
What's the different advices? Let's start with the youngest kids. The 20-year-olds, they're starting their job. What would be the great advice you'd give them?
Well, I think right now, especially, I mean, you look at the news, what's going on. A lot of the younger kids are hit with student loans and things like that.
Yeah.
So it's a mix of how do I pay off my student debt, but also start saving for homes and to be able to afford even a car payment. So starting early, that's a big one. Even if it's $25 a month or whatever it is, it's starting early. That's a big piece of advice that I think is very valuable because it does get you kind of going early on. There's a book that I read. It's called The Automatic Millionaire by
Okay.
David Bach. I read that a long, long time ago. I was probably in college when I read it first. But it's a great book of just starting the actions of starting to save or starting to
Okay.
put anything in place. It doesn't even have to do with saving. It can be anything in your life. But once you start that action and you repeat it, and if you can make it automatic, it'll just
Gotcha. Makes
it just
sense.
takes place because you don't have to think about it. If
Right.
there's something you don't have to think about, that just makes your life that much easier and
Okay.
something else gets accomplished. So
Okay. Now I know that I'll probably ask you some question. You're like, oh, I can't give any advice because this is the rules.
yeah, no, we'll be all right.
We'll see.
work
We'll
around
see.
it. Yeah,
You'll see.
yeah,
You'll
we're
you'll
okay.
you'll spray me with water or something if I ask the wrong kind of question. But because my next question was like, do you have any advice for these kids? But but I like the idea that you're saying just start early.
Yeah.
Okay. What about so some companies will have like a 401k for kids.
Yep.
But what if these people are working for a place that doesn't have a 401k?
Yep.
Is there what are the other options? I'm not asking you to
Sure.
say
Yeah,
this is the
no.
best bet. But
No, there's a lot of options out there. You have IRAs.
okay.
Roth IRA is really the popular one because you're putting in money after tax and then it's growing tax free for the rest of your
Okay.
life, which is really popular. A lot of the younger kids that I talk to or younger people that I talk to, that's kind of the first thing that they touch on is how do I start a Roth IRA or
Nice.
how do I
Okay.
do something Roth? So you can do a Roth, you can do a traditional, you can do a non-retirement account, so
Okay.
just a brokerage account. Um, I see a lot of people that have those. They want to buy stocks and kind of play around with it, whether it's Robinhood or Schwab or something like that.
Okay.
But yeah, there's a lot of options out there. Obviously, if you have a 401k at work
Yeah.
and they're matching, that's number one because it's free money.
Sure.
So
Sure.
you want to take that match and run from there. But there are a lot of options outside of that as well.
Okay. Now, it was interesting because you said a lot of these kids are asking you about a Roth IRA. Are you finding that these kids nowadays are a little bit more astute? They understand this, or is it just you think a small percentage of them? What's the deal?
I think they're more astute in terms of understanding that it exists.
Okay.
Um, and I think they're learning the beauty of it, right? We have the internet, so you
Yes,
can
that's
learn
true.
anything and everything. But kind of the bad thing is that there's so much information out there and so
Yeah.
much misinformation. So a lot of times it's clarification on their knowledge already and then
Okay.
building off of that. So they're understanding that it's out there and people are telling them to open them or open a
Sure.
Roth IRA or have a Roth 401k, but they don't understand kind of the pieces to it always. So
Okay.
we're building that education there.
All right. All right. So that's for the younger people. What
Yeah.
about the people who are a little older? They're starting their families. Let's say they're newly married. They've got they're maybe buying their first home.
Yeah.
Uh, Little kids, etc. That type of age group. What's the different type of advice you give to them?
Yeah, so a lot of times we're sitting down with them. It's talking about protecting themselves and protecting their families. I know Joe Janicki's been in here
Yep.
looking at their coverages for their home and their auto,
Sure.
making sure that they have the right life insurance in place. There's a lot of what I think is poor life insurance information out there on TikTok and things like that.
Yeah.
So having the correct coverage and just protecting your spouse, protecting your kids, looking at estate planning. If you do have young kids, if something happens to you and your spouse, you want to make sure they're taken care of. You want to make sure the funds that you're leaving for them are taken care of. So we look at that stuff as well. And then putting away money. Again,
Yeah.
still you're still young, still want to put those funds away. On the flip side, you also want to be able to live life and do things.
You want to enjoy life. Sure.
And still, because we don't know how long we truly have. So it's a balance. It's a balance. And, sitting down with clients, I can tell you, I've met with some recently and it's taking a hard look at, okay, what's important? What do you want to save for? What are your goals? But then also, okay, you need to have fun and live your life now. So I always tell them I can't make the decision for them. I can give them advice, but
Yeah.
in the end, they make the real decision of what they're going to do and how
Certainly.
they're going to do it.
Certainly.
So
Yeah. So talk about the next part of our show when we're talking about tough decisions,
Yeah.
that immediately, or tough conversations, not decisions, tough conversations. This immediately leads us right into that because, you're talking to a young couple who feels like in a way their life is just starting,
Yeah.
new home, new marriage, kids and the whole bit. And you have to have a conversation with them going, that can end quickly.
Yeah.
All right. And how are you prepared? What is going to happen? You've created some responsibilities, right? And they are dependent on you. And so it's time for us to start having those tough conversations. So we'll get into that more because this is already really interesting. A kid in his 20s, the idea of save is not worried about, well, I could go at any minute. No, he's thinking more like, how am I going to retire? What's my retirement going to look like? Am I going to be living here in my mom's basement still?
Yeah.
Or,
and
yeah.
it's really in that kind of age group that I've seen, it's more, how do I just make money? I have my regular job, but the second job is, or this,
the side hustle.
The side hustle.
Yeah.
That's big in that generation. Is
Oh,
what's my
yeah.
side hustle on the side? Where do I have extra money? And they might have 2, 3, 4 different side hustles, which is great.
Right.
But but that's kind of a bigger mentality of how they're going to make money and succeed, is having that side hustle. Now,
Yeah.
I don't always agree with it, obviously,
Uh-huh.
but I think if they take it seriously and they're putting their everything they have into it, their energy, their knowledge, I think it can be successful. And I will tell them that, but I also like to kind of bring them down and say, okay, you need to focus on a few things and be successful at those, and not spread yourself too thin
Exactly. I like that.
at that point. So,
Well, you know what's interesting, because we'll take a side note because you mentioned side hustle. Is this there was a time in this country's history that a family can get together and live on one income,
Yep.
right? And then over time, it became every family seems to be a dual income family in order to make it happen. And now I think this next generation is feeling like a dual income is not even enough. I need those side hustles to continue to bring in more dollars. What do you think is the next step? Because if we're married and we're dual income and we all have side hustles, what's the next step? What do you think?
you know what's kind of funny, and I've seen this more, especially in people in my age group. A lot of people are taking a step back and they're cutting back on the luxury of
Nice.
things,
Yes.
which is good to see. And they're realizing that, hey, I want to spend more time with my family. I want to, go on vacations, but I don't
Right.
have to go to, Hawaii. I'm going to go local vacations.
Yeah.
It's going to cost us less, but we can do that 5 times a year rather than one time to Hawaii. Cutting back on just things that you might see as a necessity, but you don't have to have 10 streaming platforms.
Right.
You don't have to have cable. You don't have to have $1,000 car payment, that type of thing. You can buy a used car,
Yeah.
or your house doesn't have to be a mansion. It can be, 3 bedrooms.
Right,
And it doesn't
right.
have to be 5 and a 4-car garage, that type of thing. So I am seeing that where people are cutting back in those areas because they do want to almost be like a 1.5 income family.
Okay.
Where
All
they
right.
can kind of cut back and enjoy life and kind of relax. Just because, I mean, if you look back since 2008, I mean, well, even further than that, but let's just say 2008 was kind of the last, I don't know, financial crisis. They saw what their parents went through. They
Right,
saw,
right.
all those things, and they're kind of getting to the point, and then going through COVID, they're kind of getting to the point where I just want to sit back and, work hard, but enjoy life too, and be able to
Yeah.
enjoy these things rather than, I'm going to live till 65 years old and pass away and not be able to enjoy these things.
Correct.
They see that they're seeing their grandparents and their parents go through this, and it's really kind of jogging their inner self and saying, what do I want to do and how do I want to do it?
Okay. I like that because you bring up something different. It's just like I said, it used to be that one income to support the family, then dual income. Now it's dual income with side hustles. And so the next evolution is cutting back on those expenses. And I like this because the way you put it was, let's reconnect what's really important to us. It's not all about luxuries and chasing after these dreams, because that chasing, I mean, my whole concept is master happiness.
Yeah.
And I tell people all the time, if you think happiness is like that next thing you're going to buy, you're wrong. It's got to be, you get more happiness out of the anticipation, the wanting for it, the desire, the fighting for it, as
Yep.
opposed to receiving it. Okay. I always liken it to climbing a mountain. You spend so much time on the journey getting to the top, right? And that moment at the top that you thought, oh, that's it, my accomplishment, that's fleeting. You get up to the top of the mountain, you're like, all right, let's turn around, go back down.
Yeah.
Right. It's not like I climbed up here and I'm going to live here. No, that's just a moment.
Yep.
And so you have to learn to truly, truly enjoy that journey. And I think I love the way you might have just solved the world's problems here. Okay. That I think we have to go back to that simpler time. Okay.
I think it really is something that I think it could bring more happiness to people, is doing that instead of chasing these just ideas of things where we're going to have to work the rest of our lives, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Work till you're 70 years old and you're still have bills and a mortgage and all these things, where if you can cut back, you can do the things you like, have a job that you like and enjoy doing, and you don't have to make, gobs of money to be able to do it. You just need to kind of prioritize what's important to you, what's important to your family,
right,
and then go from there. Now, if you want to prioritize a $500,000 a year job and you want to work 24/7, well, then that's up to you.
That's a whole different show. Yeah.
It really is.
Right.
My wife made that decision a few years ago. We made it together. The place she was working, 60, 70 hours a week,
Right.
and that was tough with young kids. And that was kind of a decision we made together. And she stepped back, and she's got a great job, doing really well now. But she's not working 70-hour weeks
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
year long anymore,
Right.
which has been really great for us, and having two young kids. So
Sure. Sure.
just making those decisions and those priorities.
So, it reminds me of a scene from a movie. You've seen the Godfather trilogy?
I have, a long time ago.
A long
Yeah.
time ago. Well, in part 2, where they refer back to not only Old Country, but what they do is they talk about when Vito Corleone first came to New York, and they're a young couple, and he's married, and they're having their first child, right? Well, there's a point in time where he gets fired from the butcher shop he works at, right? And the butcher's like, "Oh, here, take this food." And he's like, "No, no, no, I don't need anything. Thank you so very much," right? He goes home, and he knows he's got to break this news to his wife, but he doesn't right away. That's not the first thing he does. What he does is he's got just a pear wrapped in paper, and he comes in and he puts it down on the table, unwraps it, and lays it there, and like just adjusts it. Like, it's on display. And she comes walking going, "Oh my goodness, like look at this, it's a pear," right? And it always, that is such a memorable scene for me, because they made such a big deal out of something so simple.
Yeah.
And you think about how excited they were that, "Oh my gosh, it's a pear. We're going to cut it up. We're all going to split it. We're going to have this pear for dessert. This is going to be such an incredible day," right? And now we live in a world where we buy pears by like a bag of them. And then you look, "Oh, this one's bruised. Throw that one away," right?
Well, and that's we have this conversation, but that's the same deal with going out to eat, going to McDonald's, things like that. When I was a kid, that you didn't go out to eat at all.
Not
you
at all,
ate at
right.
home. If you went out, that was a real treat. Now you go out to eat a couple times a week, and you think nothing of it.
Now the treat is if you cook at home.
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
Right. That's what's so funny.
Yeah.
It's turned around. When I grew up, I think there was like one McDonald's a fairly good distance, and my aunt, for a treat, would say, "We're all getting in our bicycles and we're going to ride to McDonald's." And that was like the treat. Like you said, this was a very special occasion. It wasn't like, I'm just going to drive through and grab something to eat. Yeah. So the world has changed. That's why I'm kind of glad that it's cyclical. We're going back to this simpler time, and whether it be financial reasons that are forcing us to do so, or if it's just we are learning to not take things for granted, whatever it is, I think it's a really good thing that we're scaling back.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a step in the right direction in that aspect of things. I think it could be a good thing for people, but again, it's just about prioritizing and what you see is important in life, and going for it.
There you go. So the last group I wanted to talk about was elderly people.
Yeah.
All right. Maybe it's their retirement age, they're beyond retirement age, they're getting up in age, and they're looking, their families, their children have grown and on their own. So what kind of things, what's the conversations that you have with them?
Yeah, so a lot of the conversations, if they're at or near retirement, it's what income are we going to have, and where is it coming from? So we're looking just at their income sources, whether they have pensions or Social Security. Obviously, Social Security is a hot button topic every year, even more so now. It's been in the news, and who knows what's going to happen with that. And just making sure they're taken care of in that realm, because we work all our lives, and we get to a point of where we want to retire, and then the money faucet's turned off. That job stops. So
correct.
It's a big deal to stop working and start relying on other sources of income, whether it's all the savings you had, or a large majority rely on just Social Security, and maybe small pensions. So it's a mental hurdle to get past that for a lot of people that do want to retire. So income is a big piece, and then healthcare. Looking at healthcare, because of the healthcare exchange, people are able to retire a lot earlier now, where they couldn't before,
and living a lot longer.
Well, they're living a lot less. That's the other piece, is longevity. Is how long is the income going to last?
Right.
Am I going to be able to afford my bills? Can I take care of my healthcare costs? Medicare. We'll see where it goes. Right now, it's pretty decent for those that have it. Again, it's always changing, and that's a big fear too. Is they're always worried about every year. Okay, how's my coverage going to change?
Right.
'Cause different medicines and different plans, and
Sure.
there's different things out there. So oftentimes they're working with a Medicare broker that I know or that they work with, just to make sure that they have the plan that's right for them, to at least give them some comfort for that year that they have that coverage. It's a big deal, because you want to make sure you're going to be able to get taken care of if, let's face it, health
If you
issues
need
pop
it,
up,
right?
right? I
Sure,
mean,
sure, sure.
if you don't have health, all the money in the world isn't going to matter.
Exactly,
So,
exactly.
yeah, taking care of those issues.
All right. So, Derek, it's the bottom of the hour. Let me see if I can get this recording to work. We're just going to remind people who they're listening to, but we're going to go make this really quick and get right back to this, because I want to start talking a little bit about having these tough conversations.
Yeah, let's do it.
WRLR 98.3 FM LP, Round Lake Beach, Illinois.
All right, there I did my FCC rule. The only thing I have to definitely do. There's a lot of things I'm not supposed to do, but that one I'm supposed to do. All right, so
I like it.
Yeah.
I actually when I was really young, I actually lived just down the street from here, so it's fun to kind of sit here and hear the Round Lake Beach and think of those days, even though it's quite a long time
quite
ago.
a while ago. Okay. So for those of you who just tuned in, that's cool. This is the second half of the show. We're going to be talking about tough conversations. The first half of the show, we lied to all the listeners. They thought they were tuning in at 7 to hear about tough conversations, but instead they learned a little bit about wealth management from my good friend Derek Hartman with Fraser Wealth Management, right?
Yep.
Okay. So we're going to dive into this, and we're going to kind of talk about the types of tough conversations we face every day, why they're important to have, and how do we handle them, and maybe discuss a little bit about what makes us hesitate to have those conversations. So we're going to get right into this. So, Derek, when we talk about this, I want to jump in first about the tough conversations that people have at work. I think I want to get this kind of out of the way before we get into the family thing, because we're talking about a lot of younger people might have a difficult time to say, "Hey, I've got a boss who doesn't understand me. I want things. I don't know how to say this," and just start moving forward. Or it's people nearing retirement and they're afraid maybe I'm going to get fired for something like this. Is it time for me to go and have take a closer look at what I'm doing and maybe move on and move to a different job? So, do you have any stories, Derek, about yourself where you have had to have those, not necessarily where you're working now, but in previous places growing up, where you worked, that you had to have those tough conversations and maybe you just walked away from it, or you tried it, or you experienced someone who's really good at it or really, really bad at it?
Yeah, I mean, the tough conversations, especially in the employee realm. Before I came to Fraser, I always worked for someone else.
Okay.
I was always under someone else's umbrella, and it was a lot of sales goals and reaching your numbers and doing like that. And I wasn't comfortable with that, honestly, just because I wanted to do things because they were right for my customers and my clients at that point in time. So, I've had conversations with bosses at that point in time and just said, I may not hit this goal, but at least I know that, these customers and clients are taken care of. So I've had a lot of those conversations, and those are tough too, because a lot of times when you're having a conversation with a boss or a superior, they're just bringing something from higher up above, right? So they're just trying to hit their goals and do their things too. So it's a tough conversation to have, but I think if you kind of maintain nothing personal, right? You want to,
I think it's really important, right?
keep the personal things out of there, but just focus on the task at hand and really talking about what the issues are and whatever the consequences are. They come of it. But if you just let it simmer and come to the top, I think that creates even more issues down the line.
So I think there's this repeated feeling that I'm going to break it down into these 3 pieces.
Yeah.
And that is, number 1 is avoiding the conversation because of whatever reason. It's like I feel uncomfortable having the conversation. Maybe I'm afraid of the reaction. I don't want to have to deal with this. And maybe if I ignore it long enough, it'll go away.
Mm-hmm.
And I have worked for bosses who were like that. They didn't want to have the conversation with me. they're like, oh, I told him to fix this. I told him to do this. He's not doing this. And so they just kept ignoring it until all of a sudden it was like, hey, we got to get rid of you or something. I'm like, wait, what do you mean you got to get rid of me? For what reason? Right. And so it's really important to really drive home this communication. And that's one of the things I strive when I'm coaching businesses, is really this idea of a lot of open communication, to the point I work with some companies that are like, really, I got to talk to these people that often? Yes, they're your employees, right?
Yeah.
Or they're your boss. Yes, you want to talk to them on a really regular basis, because you need to make sure everyone's heading down the same path. We're all after the same goal. You need to know how people are interpreting your actions. And the only way to do that is having the conversations. So you can't be nervous about it, especially if you're nervous or scared because you're like, oh, if I bring this up, my boss is going to be really upset with me. You got to get to it. You got to have that conversation. It's worse if it's hidden, because then you don't know what the boss is thinking.
Yeah. And I think it helps you too.
Yep.
It helps you become a better employee because you're able to communicate with your higher ups.
Yep.
If you're just keeping quiet, that's not going to lead you anywhere, honestly.
No.
Anywhere but being miserable and not happy with the way things are going. And again, if you maintain your focus, you have the reasons behind you're having that conversation.
Yep.
You're able to support it. There's nothing wrong with that. That's good conversation to have in the workplace for sure.
And this kind of leads us to the second part. If the first part was we avoid the conversations altogether, the second part is, and it helps give us a reason to avoid it, is we misinterpret the interactions, right? Or we misinterpret the intentions, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
And so what happens is suddenly, you might get a boss who's like, I don't want to talk to him because this is going to turn into a fight. It doesn't have to be a fight, right? And so we start projecting what we think is going to happen, and then it's just easier to ignore it.
Yep.
And so that's really big. And then the next part, the third one, is the tone. And tonality is so important, because I've learned from people, man, I worked for some bosses who used to just fly off the handle, just screaming, no matter what it was, everything. Like, oh, look at this, by the garbage can. Somebody put a coffee cup, it's on the ground. They missed the garbage can. I can't believe this is the end of the world, right? It was like everything was the end of the world. And it was their way of attacking everything. And I think it was because they were afraid to have a two-way conversation.
Yep.
If I scream loud enough, then everyone shuts up and just gets it done. And I don't have to have a back and forth.
I think we see that a lot just in general in life right now. But in the workplace, a lot of those those struggles, I think, come from their own insecurities of what they're doing and how they're doing it.
Yeah.
And as you said, scream loud enough, then the other person's just going to walk away and it's going to be done, even though it's not really done for a long time. And I've had some really great bosses that have been amazing at communication. I worked at actually National City Bank here in Round Lake before it was torn down to put in the railroad bridge down there off of Rollins. But I had 4 or 5 different branch managers when I was in there in the 5 years that I was there. And it was a stark difference between some of them, coming in and their just their communication skills compared to others. And just like you said, it's really just maintaining your cool and just kind of working through the situation. And
I think part of it is, it's also the idea of what's your purpose as a leader, as a manager, a supervisor. What's your purpose? And that is to help your employees grow and evolve, and hopefully you lead this team to get something accomplished. And if you eliminate the communication, if you avoid it, how do you really expect them to follow you if they don't understand the directives, right?
Yep.
So I think communication is the first thing. And for a good leader or even an employee working with someone like this, it's got to be that strong listening. Okay, it's so important to get in there and really pay attention to what's going on. Take your time. Don't let emotion get involved in it. Just breathe a little deep. Count off to 10 if you need to before you respond. Think it through, explain, ask for clarification, all those kinds of things when you're doing this. But the important thing is understand the intention behind it. Because if somebody asks me something that I take offense at it, I have to stop and say, what was their intention? What were they really, why did they bring that up? What are they saying about it? And one of the things I've been trying to cop for myself that I've been trying to do, I'm not at 100% yet. Like I said, I'm trying to master happiness. I'm also trying to master this. Is I call it the aha method. Okay. And it was like an aha moment for me where it suddenly came to me, and it stands for anticipate happiness always. And so no matter what the conversation, no matter what the event is, if I stop for a second and let the knee-jerk reaction pass and stop and say, what could the good reason for this happening be? Why is this person acting this way? Why is this person saying this to me? Remember, maybe they're not attacking me in general, but whatever it is, try to strive for, maybe there's a happy part behind this. There's a happy push that's getting us in this direction.
And we've all been there. I mean, we've
yeah.
all had those situations where we wrote that email and then, oh wait, let's erase that.
Exactly,
right?
Let's
close that and try it again, later on, or phone calls that you want to make, or and it really is taking that moment to breathe and even putting yourself in their shoes.
Certainly,
and looking at, okay, they sent this to me. There's maybe some anger or frustration or whatever it might be. But trying to understand it, like you said, and I think that it will lead to a better resolution in the end.
Definitely.
Some way, shape, or form.
And how, and the thing is, if we're second guessing everything about what did you mean by that? Okay. Or not even asking what did you mean, but just assuming. I know what you meant by that, right?
Yep.
I worked with somebody once who, it was a female boss of mine, and I remember she came in with this new outfit, right? And I was like, "Oh, you look really nice today," right? Which you would think is just a nice comment to say. Her reaction was, "Oh, are you saying I don't normally look nice?"
Oh.
And I was like going, wow,
No.
a compliment just suddenly turned into a very tough conversation.
Yeah.
Right. And it was that death stare that I'm getting, like, and I'm going, no, I didn't mean, I'm just saying that's a nice outfit. Never mind. Okay.
I take it back.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was lying. It's not a nice outfit. But you think about just that some people purposely, whether it's consciously or subconsciously, make conversations a tough conversation.
Yeah.
And I think I like what you had said. It is something about their past, right? They're so guarded because maybe when they were younger, somebody made fun of them. Maybe their parents raised them a certain way. Maybe they were picked on, whatever the deal is, and they're carrying that on throughout their entire life.
Well, and I think too, so I also have a short teaching background as well.
You just taught short people?
Yeah, just short people.
All right.
Have a teaching degree.
Yeah.
I was out there for a bit, but it's looking at the students and they're all different, and you have to look at them different and approach them different, teach them different.
Yes.
It's the same thing in approaching people in a work aspect or family, whatever it might be, is you have to assess the situation, and you have to understand, how you're going to approach it is going to, treat it differently.
Right.
They're going to react differently. You're going to react differently. And it also comes from kind of the mode of communication.
Yep.
From text messages to emails, that type of stuff. We don't always understand, what's coming through. An emoji isn't going to help a lot of times.
No, exactly.
We interpret it so much differently. So that's another piece of the puzzle of how you're interpreting something. If it's coming, from word of mouth, is it, hearsay? Is it second mouth? We have to take all those things into account before we step up and react.
And it's really tough to do that when we're in an emotional state.
Extremely,
right?
Yep.
And so it's really hard to go, all right, I need to relax a little bit. And so I think one of the big things is understanding what the reason is. And we're going to get into talking with family, and this is spouse, children, etc. Any of these tough conversations. And I think we talked a little bit about some of the conversations we've had or have had to have in the past. But some of the things I want us to think about is asking yourself before we start the conversation, or if I'm the one who is receiving the tough conversation, those questions that I'm like, oh, I didn't really want to talk about this, right?
Yeah.
I'm not ready for this, is understanding why that person feels this is important to discuss. And if you ask that question for itself and say, hold on a second, before you talk about this, why is it that you're asking me this? What are your intentions behind this? are you thinking good? Are you thinking good of me? Because sometimes, because I want to be honest and open. You know what? Because this conversation's a trigger point for me. You're going to be talking about something I don't want to talk about. Okay, but I understand. Explain to me why you want to discuss it. And I think that's a great way to start it. Okay, and that gives us time to separate our emotions. To go, like I said, this is going to trigger me. Okay, or I know this might trigger you because every time we try to bring up this conversation, you kind of get upset. And first off, I want to know why we're getting upset when we bring up this conversation, because I think it's an important conversation to have. Okay, and then you dig even deeper where you say, the reason it bothers me is because it affects me, and I think that you're attacking me. I feel like you will think less of me when we talk about this, and you have to have all those conversations openly to move forward.
And it brings all the walls down.
Yeah.
When you put that information out there and you kind of make yourself vulnerable, that brings all the walls down, and that helps the conversation, the communication tremendously, honestly.
Yep. And I think then we get into this whole thing of understanding that if we're having a tough conversation, I cannot control your reactions. And so if you get upset, I don't have a right to get upset because you got upset. I wasn't upset until you got upset. Now you just got upset because I was trying to help you, but forget it.
It's a conversation with my children right now.
Exactly. Right. Who they probably always win. Right.
All right. My goodness. Yeah.
Yes. This was interesting. I was talking to a friend of mine about these types of tough conversations over the weekend, and it was amazing the thing that he brought up that I was like, oh my God, this is so true. And it is kind of like separating yourself from the story or separating yourself from the conversation. And he said that he has some of his best conversations with his kids, his deepest conversations, when they're in the car and no one is making eye contact.
Yeah.
Because he's driving, just looking forward, occasionally in the rearview mirror, but just looking forward. Person sitting next to him, just looking forward. And I remember being a single dad at this point in time with a daughter. Okay. At that age where I was like, oh, it's this age. Do I have to start talking about birth control?
Oh, okay.
Like, oh man. And I remember sitting in the kitchen with her and she's like washing dishes or something. And I just turned away. I'm looking at the wall and going, so anyway, I need to talk to you about this. And she's looking, why are you looking at the wall? And as soon as I brought up the subject, she's like, oh my God, I don't want to talk about this. But there's a power to let's not make eye contact.
Yeah.
Okay, let's kind of avoid that. Just that whole thing of let's avoid the elephant in the room, the thing that's really causing us this pain. Like it doesn't feel right. I don't want to have a conversation, but I understand it's important, so we're going to have a conversation. But please don't look at me, okay?
Well, and the eye contact, it makes it just so serious and so direct.
Yes,
and when it's a topic like that, it's just easier to kind of ease into it, I guess.
Yes.
And what I would say too, and I was thinking about this, a lot of those tough conversations too, I think people try to dance around it.
Yeah.
Before they even get to the actual subject, right? So you start talking about, your boss calls you in and you start talking about the weather and all these things instead of just saying, okay, God, this is, what we need to talk about. That just makes it so much worse.
Certainly.
The conversation is inevitable. I feel like it's almost a Seinfeld episode where they come in, they're going to talk about something, and then they start talking about the weather and never get to
right
to the actual topic.
Oh, I think that'd be an excellent episode, right? Yeah.
But yeah, just dancing around the subject matter and not letting them know even what you're going to talk about if you're going to have a conversation.
Yeah.
Giving them a heads up. Hey, we're going to talk about XYZ, even if it's family. Hey, we're going to talk about. Yeah. I know with my clients, there's a lot of conversations of parents going into care or needing care or that type of stuff. And that's a hard, we were talking earlier, with your mom, that story, but that's a tough conversation to have. Definitely. One, they don't want to hear it. And two, there's just so many pieces.
Yeah.
So you dance around it. You say, oh, let's go to dinner. And then it all goes from there. Right.
Exactly. I wanted to jump in really quick because you're talking about an employee, like the conversations. It just, made me think of this story about I had to let somebody go at this one company I was working for, right? And so I talked to the HR person, and the HR person said, yeah, go ahead and get them, and I'll meet you in the conference room, and we'll have this conversation. So I go back, and I tell the person, hey, meet me there. And they're like, hold up. And they run to me. So they're walking with me as we're walking through this big plant. And I'm walking going, oh, this person has no idea what we're going to talk about. And even that entire conversation, me trying not to converse about anything, because I agree with you. Why am I going to talk about pleasantries and then go, oh, and by the way, we're letting you go.
Yeah.
And I'll get in the conference room and the HR person's not there yet. So now the conversation continues. So the person's asking, so what'd you do last weekend? You got plans for this coming weekend? And all
That's
that.
such a tough conversation after that.
Right. Well, so then it clicked to me that what I did was I said, you know what? Never enough about me. Let me ask a little bit about some of your long-term goals. What is it that you want out of life? What's your direction? Where do you want to go? Okay. And we started talking about things like that. And they were like, oh, I don't know. One day I'd like to go on vacation. One day I'd like to do this. And then by the time the HR person came in and we said, look, this is not a good fit. Okay. I don't think you are ready to put forth the effort we need here. But I love hearing that you've got a lot of great aspirations for yourself. You've got goals and dreams. And I don't think that you can fulfill those if you're here. So because of that, we have to let you go. Okay. And it was thank goodness, because I had what seemed like an eternity to sit with this person. Right. So thank goodness it clicked to me to say, let's talk about what they want out of life and why this current employment is not what they want.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that worked out. So that tough conversation, I got saved by somebody.
Well, and it's nice too, because that makes them think about just in general what they're trying to accomplish, whether it's in a job or a client or family. Getting them talking about themselves also relaxes the situation in general.
So let's get into. We've still got enough time, but I want to get into these conversations with family.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's the same thing. Let me ask you, where do you think you have the toughest conversations, or do you believe they're equally tough? They're just at different dynamics. Whether it be with the kids, your spouse, and let's say your peer group, versus elderly, whether it's parents, friends, elderly parents, whatever.
I think it's because the topics are usually so different, right?
Yeah.
So with family, it could be, my grandma passed away last year, and that was a tough conversation just in general because of how her health was going and kind of the aftermath of everything. When I have clients, especially too, inheritances are a big deal.
Yeah.
And you could leave the money split different ways equally, and it's still just a big deal. So that's a tough conversation to have. With my kids, we were just on a little trip over the weekend. We went down to St. Louis, but for them, they're 6 and 3. So having conversations with them, it's almost impossible for a lot of different things, trying to reason with them. We had meltdowns over who pushed the elevator button last type of thing. So you're trying to bring it down to their level and you're trying to be calm. But again, their brains and our brains are completely different. So
different. Different plans.
And it's just a different conversation and trying to, sometimes you do have to just walk away and let it simmer. And sometimes you just get it through, through it the best you can.
So I'm gonna jump in because I asked you this question because I was thinking about it a little bit during this hour we've been spending together. We started out by saying, isn't it interesting how that we have a tougher time having the conversations with our peer group or the people we're closest to versus strangers. And I think that for me, the toughest conversations I probably have sometimes are with my wife or with the people who are closest to me in age and stuff like that, because I think it's too real.
Mm-hmm.
When I talk to older people, part of me is like, I'm not there yet. So I'm going to listen to what you're saying, but it's so distant from me. And the flip side, I think, is for kids, it's the idea that we sit here, and I hear parents or adults say this to kids all the time. Oh, you think that's a big problem? Wait till you grow up. Everything gets worse. I'm like, oh, really good. Give them something to look forward to, right?
Yeah.
Right. And so when you think about this kid who goes, I lost my favorite rock.
Yeah.
On the way to school, I lost my
lost
rock.
A couple of those.
Yeah. And you sit here and you think to yourself, oh my God, it's a rock. I'll get you another rock. No, you don't understand. It was my favorite rock, right? And you're like, yeah, you're right. I don't understand. But you have to empathize with them and realize they don't have all the things that we've had. They don't have all of the things that we've lost over time. So they're learning to grieve with it. And so when I said I'm having the toughest conversations with my wife or my peer group, the reason I'm saying that's the toughest is because I understand it because we're there.
Yeah.
But if I step away from it, it's more difficult for me to have really meaningful conversations, not just tough conversations, meaningful, tough conversations with kids and people older than me, because I don't understand what they go through. And I have to really push the empathy.
Yeah.
Okay?
And especially, especially with I would say older folks, retired
Yeah.
folks that I have these conversations with. I had the experience for some of the situations
Sure.
that I've gone through of losing people and putting people in care and things like that. But there's a lot of situations that I haven't had the experience in personally, but I've had the experience dealing with other clients.
Yep.
So I've understood how they reacted and how they've gone through things and how they've dealt with things.
Right.
So I can bring those examples into it, which is really, really helpful, because then they understand, okay, there's other people that have gone through these things, and we're able to open up things and bring down walls that way and talk about these conversations. But like you said, kids, I mean, I was there at one point, but losing a favorite rock or not being able to push the elevator button,
right.
it just sometimes just flies right over my head. And
because we sit there and we go, that doesn't mean anything. It's a rock, for gosh sakes. Okay. And yet that kid is like, that was his first maybe real possession. This was, no, you don't understand. I found this rock. On my own. And I've been carrying it with me for a whole week. Right.
I could give my daughter $100 bill and that would have no value. I could tell her she could buy anything at the dollar store and that would have no value compared to these little, stuffed animals that they get from the McDonald's Happy Meal, which is
exactly
her life.
That's right. Yeah. And she squeezes it to the point, right?
Yeah.
All right. So I just think that's really cool. When you think about the empathy behind it, it's more than just the intention that we have for the conversation. Like, why are we having this conversation? It's more than having to learn to step aside from my own emotions, my own feelings. But it's also then to empathize with the person, really say, what would it be like if I was in their shoes?
Yeah.
How important is that? Because when you have conversations with older people we need to be starting to have these conversations about death. Okay. And what's going to happen afterwards? Yeah. Well, that the person, I don't want to talk about death. I don't want to talk about it at all. Yeah. No, don't, and so we don't sit there because we're sitting there going, I got still years ahead of me. I don't need to talk about it. So we can't feel it yet. Okay. I have a conversation with my kids and I talk to them probably way too much about death. And I talk about what's going to happen after I go. One day I'm going to go. And my daughter's like, she shakes her head. Oh my God, we're having this conversation again. But I go, I just want you to know that there's closure. You never have to worry about, I should have seen him more. I should have called him more. I should have said this. You've said all of that. You call me enough. I want you to have a wonderful life. So never say, I hope I was a good daughter. You were a great daughter. Okay. And you're still a great daughter. Right. But I said, it's important for me as an older individual with kids to be able to talk to them and teach them that it's all good, because I can't give them closure after I'm gone. So I'm going to fight to try to give them closure while I'm alive.
And that's a very abnormal thing for most people.
Yeah. There's a lot about me that's abnormal.
they're not having those conversations with their children like that. They're not having those tough discussions. They're just not. And I 100% fall in that same boat with probably people in my life as well.
Yeah.
But I mean, props to you for doing that. And I think I could definitely learn from that. And a lot of people can learn from that, because there is, after people pass away, no matter how much time you spent with them, no matter how many hugs you had or whatever, you still have that loss, that feeling, and it wears on you and everyone around you, even though you can't affect or you can't change anything. So, doing it while you're alive, that's great way to approach it.
Yeah, I think it is. And like I said, my kids are like, fine, we're going to have this conversation again, but it's really cool. My son on his phone, he has a note of all the things I want at my funeral.
Yeah.
Right. And he's like keeping this, and I'll tell him every once in a while, you know what? I forgot to tell you, there's a song I want to play. And he was like, all right, pull it up and type in the song. Right. And he's got this, and it's the coolest thing to just be able to say, because I think, I don't know, if I go, he's going to pull this up and he's going to, this is what Dad wanted. So we have to do this and we have to do this. And they're going to laugh going, of course he wants to do that, So it's making talking about death a normal, okay thing to do.
Well, and it's so helpful because when you're
Yes.
in that situation, all the things that are going through your mind that you're trying to cover, that you're trying to go through, and no matter how much planning you do, it's just a lot on your brain. It's
Yep.
a lot on your heart. It's a lot on all situations. So him having that, if whenever it happens in the future, 30, 40 years from now,
Thank you.
that's going to be a real help for him and the family. Honestly, that's a great way to approach it.
All right, so I'm looking at this. We got to wrap up. We're at the top of the hour. I just wanted to go over this. The bacon about approaching these tough conversations is the B is benevolence. Approach every conversation with goodwill. Remember our intentions for having this conversation. 2 is being an active listener. Okay, like although losing your lucky rock is not a big deal to me, it could be a really rough day for somebody else, right? Clarity is understand what's going on here. It's asking those questions to find out which direction we're going in. I want to know why it's a tough conversation to you. I don't want to just know why it's a tough conversation for me. Ownership, if there's anything that I'm doing wrong, making it rough, own up to that. And then finally, the neutral tone. The more that I can take some of that emotion out of it and just say, let's talk about this calmly and logically.
Yeah.
Okay. So with that, any final thoughts? Anything that if you said this was the great takeaway, this was your thing that you learned, what would it be?
Just approach every conversation with empathy.
Okay.
Think of it from the other person's standpoint and really try to understand how they're seeing you talk to them in that situation. So, that's my big advice.
And I'm going to say, talk to my kids, talk to everyone about what they should be doing with their wealth, with their money, what they should be doing, because it all ties in together. So if you missed any part of this, I have been talking with Derek Hartman with 2 N's, all right, with Fraser Wealth Management. You can find him online on LinkedIn, all kinds of stuff. He is a wealth of information, pun intended. Okay. And tune in next week. Monday, we are going to be talking to a good friend of mine, Mary Schwepp, or Shep. I always say Schwepp.
Yeah.
I throw a W in there, but it's Mary Shep. And we're going to be talking about empathy for unseen pains.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's going to be a really
I'll
good
be listening
episode.
into that one for sure.
Okay. If you missed any part of this show, please follow us later in this week. It'll be up on the podcast, Bacon Bits with Master Happiness, anywhere you listen to podcasts. In the meantime, stay sizzling. Bye-bye, everybody.
Take care. Oh, this is a good song.
WRLR.